Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm from Ocean Township, New Jersey, and I came due to multiple injuries that happened over the course of many years, specifically car accidents, one while I was walking and hit by a vehicle, another one while I was car number 3 in a 5-car pileup. At the time, I thought I was okay, and then days later, subsequent years later, I realized I was not as okay as I thought that I was, and I had herniated discs that were very specific to where they were lying, in which they were lying over 2 nerves, which caused such pain and pressure down not only my spine and my back region, my lower, my lumbar, my cervical area, the center of my back, my arm, my shoulder, my fingertips. It was a pain that brought me to my knees. I was very proactive. I had MRIs done. I had ultrasounds. I went to various doctors. I began physical therapy. I went to an acupuncturist. I was on multiple hardcore medications, from meloxicam to Lyrica. I was on muscle relaxers, tramadol, and those 3 medications, in conjunction with the muscle relaxers, in conjunction with lidocaine patches, barely even took the edge off. I spent my 50th birthday in the hospital under anesthesia receiving a surgical epidural. That did not work either. So as you can see, I've literally tried everything. I was told I was now going to have permanent nerve damage if I did not have surgery. So it really became my last resort. I could no longer drive. I could no longer walk. There were times when my husband had to carry me to the bathroom. I couldn't brush my own hair. Fast forward to April 15th. I know that it was April 15th because it was tax day, and I happened to be visiting my accountant. And my husband had to come home from work. We had to sign a paper, and he had to put his car seat in the passenger seat all the way back so that I could, and carry me to the car, and put this special lumbar pillow that I had in the passenger seat just to get me to the accountant's office. And this is where I'd like to give a shout out to Dan White, my wonderful accountant who sent me here and essentially saved my life. As I'm leaving, I run into Dan White. He's coming in as I'm leaving, and he says, "Hi, Alyssa, how are you feeling? I know you're scheduled for surgery in 3 days." I said, "Yeah, I'm anxious to get this over with, but I am meeting tomorrow. I have an appointment to meet with this holistic chiropractor in your building, coincidentally." I said, "What do you know of this doctor?" He said, "I'm sure this doctor's fabulous, but I've never been there. I go to Molland Spinal Care, and I have been going there for 9 years. And I too thought that I needed surgery. I have multiple herniated discs. I was in horrible shape. I understand what you're going through. And here I am 9 years later, and it's nothing short of a miracle." He's like, "Here's the phone number. I want you to give a buzz." So I came in that day. My husband came home from work to drive me, and I met with Dr. Zach. He looked over my scans. He told me I am a very complicated case. I said, "Tell me something I don't know. Just ask my husband." And who definitely agrees. After looking at everything and going over multiple scans that I had taken over the years and his own measurements and everything else, he said, "I'm 70% sure I can cure you and you will avoid the surgery." And I said, "You know what? Those are good enough odds for me. I have nothing to lose." Subsequently, I went to my first actual appointment that following Thursday, which was April 18th. That was the day of my scheduled surgery. I was to go into New York City. I had already gone through pre-op. I had taken care of everything. I was ready for my surgery on April 18th, canceled it. In my brain, I postponed it because I never thought that anything would work after everything I had tried and everything had failed. And so on the 20th, I had my first appointment. It's the big one. It's the 3-hour appointment. And Dr. Zach said to me, "In 3 days from now, you're going to feel some pain." And I said, "Pain? You don't even touch me. How am I going to feel pain? I felt nothing." And I went home with my rules and I followed them. Sure enough, 3 days later, I felt the pain just as predicted. Nothing I couldn't handle. But more importantly, 2 days later, on the 20th, not only did I go to my daughter's dance collective in New York City, but I went there on only 2 Advil, and I sat through an hour-and-a-half production a 2-hour car ride. The Advil wore off and I didn't even realize it. I never needed it again. I was just in shock when it occurred to me what had just happened and how could this happen? Since then, I've only improved. I've only become better over the course of, I would say, perhaps 3 months, maybe even less. But 2 days later, only 2 days later after my first appointment, I went to New York City. And I was able to see my daughter dance in her last dance collective at college, and I was able to attend her college graduation, of which I never thought in a million years I would be able to. I thought I was going to have to watch it at home on Zoom. I credit Molland Spinal Care with literally saving my life. I'm living again. I had no life for months, but I have been walking 6 miles a day. I have been exercising at home, and I feel great. I forget that there was ever even anything wrong. That's really my testament here, and I cannot refer them high enough. And I never had surgery. I'm not on any medication. The only thing I can say is, other than Dr. Liz and Dr. Zach being brilliant, it's magic. It's all I can really say. It's miraculous.